Alright, the San Antonio Spurs just played one of the worst shooting games of their entire season in the biggest game of their season, and it cost them. But here's the thing about basketball that nobody wants to hear when their team loses. Numbers that ugly almost never happen twice. So the real question for Game 2 is simple. What happens when the Spurs just start making shots again? Because there's a powerful, almost gravitational force in statistics. It's called regression to the mean, and it says that extreme outliers get pulled back toward normal. The Spurs shooting in Game 1 was a historic outlier, so before Friday, let's make the case that Game 2 might look like a completely different basketball game. This is Game is Culture. Real quick before we get into it, if you like breakdowns that actually show the math instead of just yelling takes at you, go hit subscribe. It's free and it genuinely helps, so click it. First, the evidence. Just how far below normal were they? Start with the three-point line. The Spurs shot 25.6% from deep in Game 1. The league average across the entire NBA is around 36, and San Antonio wasn't an average shooting team. They were a top 4 offense, so they didn't just shoot a little below their level. They shot 10 points below the entire league's baseline. And these weren't all terrible shots. A huge share of those 43 attempts were the same open rhythm threes that powered 62 wins. So we're not talking about a team that got its shots taken away. We're talking about a team that got the looks it wanted and simply missed them at a rate that defies its own talent. That is the definition of an unlucky night. Now look at the franchise player. Victor Wembanyama shot 6 for 21, under 29% from the field. For a player who normally lives near 50%, that's roughly half his usual efficiency. So the single most important offensive engine the Spurs have was running on fumes, and engines like that don't stall 2 nights in a row. So what does regression actually predict for Game 2? It predicts a snapback because over a large sample, a good shooting team makes its open threes at its normal rate. One cold game doesn't change who they are, it just means the bad luck got front-loaded. So the most statistically likely outcome on Friday is that those exact same open looks start dropping, and when they do, the Spurs offense doesn't just improve, it erupts. And the scoring tells the same story. San Antonio averaged nearly 120 points a game this season. In Game 1, they scored 95. That's a 25-point gap sitting there waiting to close. If even half of that comes back through normal shooting, the Spurs go from a 10-point loss to a comfortable win without changing a single thing about their approach. Think about that. The Spurs lost by 10. They missed roughly 5 threes worth 15 points that they normally make. So the entire margin of defeat and then some is hiding inside their cold shooting. They don't need a brilliant new game plan to win Game 2. They might just need their hands to stop betraying them. But regression cuts both ways. Let's be fair to New York. Because the Knicks weren't exactly scorching either. They won shooting just 41.5%, so part of the reason this game was close enough for San Antonio to lose by only 10 is that New York was also leaving points on the floor. If both teams regress upward, the Spurs gain more because they have further to climb, but the Knicks won't be this cold again either. And there's a part of Game 1 that won't regress, and the Spurs can't count on luck to fix. The Knicks' defense. Some of those misses were genuinely forced by New York's long switching wall. So San Antonio can't just assume every brick was bad luck. They have to separate the shots the defense took away from the open ones they simply missed. The open ones come back. The contested ones, they have to earn. Real quick though, if you've made it this far, you've really got to hit subscribe. I'm not going to beg, but I am going to ask, so hit it and I'll wait. Let's make the regression concrete with the actual shooters. Start with the misery list from Game 1. De'Aaron Fox, 0 for 4 from 3. Devin Vassell, 1 of 6. Stephon Castle, 1 of 5. Wembanyama, 2 of 9. These are not poor shooters. These are NBA rotation players who all happen to go cold on the exact same night. The odds of every single one of them staying that cold again are tiny. Because that's the hidden math of a team-wide slump. For a whole roster to shoot 26% from 3, you need almost everyone to misfire at the same time. And that kind of collective cold streak is incredibly unlikely to repeat. So even if 1 or 2 Spurs stay cool on Friday, the simple return of the others to their normal levels lifts the whole offense back toward where it belongs. And the lone bright spot proves the point. Julian Champagnie went 5 of 10 from deep, completely normal shooting, while everyone around him bricked. So we know the looks were makeable. Champagnie made his, the rest just didn't on that one night. Multiply Champagnie's normal night across the rest of the roster, and San Antonio's offense looks terrifying again. So here's the realistic picture of Game 2. Expect 3 things to shift. The Spurs' open threes start falling, pulling their offense back toward normal. Wembanyama's efficiency rebounds toward his usual dominance, and the whole game opens up into something closer to the high-scoring affair everyone expected. So if you watched Game 1 and concluded the Spurs are in trouble, the math is quietly telling you not so fast. And this is exactly why one-game samples are so dangerous to overreact to, because the loudest takes after Game 1 will be about what's wrong with the Spurs. But the quiet math says the most likely story is that almost nothing is wrong, and that the shots that didn't fall on Wednesday fall on Friday. Regression isn't a hope, it's a probability. But here's the honest, crucial caveat. Regression is a tendency, not a promise. It says that over many games, the shooting normalizes. It does not say it happens on any specific night. So the Spurs could absolutely come out on Friday and shoot poorly again. Variance is cruel like that. A team can be due to make shots and still miss them in the exact game where it matters most. And there's a deeper risk. If a team leans entirely on regression and assumes the shots will just come back, it can stop doing the hard things. Attacking the rim, cutting the turnovers, moving the ball. So the smartest version of San Antonio doesn't just wait for the threes to fall. It fixes what it controls and lets the regression be a bonus, not a crutch. So I'm going to leave it with you. Was Game 1 just a cold night that snaps back on Friday? Or did the Knicks defense expose something real that no amount of regression can fix? Because that's the whole series in one question. So tell me down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. We're in a race to 1,000 subscribers, so please join the family.